Anglican morning service leave out the Te Deum, I suppose, because it's a long song, long psalm, you may say, and services have to finish before a certain time. Well, in reality they don't, but the modern assumption is that they do. And the quest for a rapid terminus is, alas, one of the very, I think, diminishing things about the whole modern culture. But I can't go into that. That would be off my subject. The Te Deum, as I said, it's a precious, a rich, a marvelously dignified and strong psalm produced by the Church, running over the realities of the Trinity and ending with the very touching words, "Lord, in thee have I trusted, let me never be confounded." Yes, personal devotion there, highlighted. Then you read the New Testament passage that's set, and out of that, move to the confession of your faith, because, after all, the service is for believers. And in these days, it seems to me that this is a feature of the service which is extremely valuable, because in so many forms of church service, well, the faith, the truths of the faith, simply aren't highlighted and are treated as if they don't matter. How is that, you say? Well, they are left out. That's what makes it look as if they are not thought to matter. But you have that. In Anglican morning prayer, however, it's different. You confess your faith, just as it's understood that Anglicans should know their faith. And that's one of the features, it seems to me, which puts Anglican patterns of worship in a leadership position in Christendom today. Well, going back to the service, the confession of faith leads on to prayer, and prayer leads on to a final blessing. And the worshippers who have been engaged in what's been going on for about 20 or 25 minutes, that's how long it takes, they, one hopes anyway, will rise from their knees with a clear sense of their vocation to serve and please God today, and with a vivid sense of the forgiveness of their sins, the reality of the atoning cross of Christ, the authority and power of Holy Scripture, the truth of the Creed, and the focus of a string of prayers for key blessings which are needed for the living of that day. Well, that, I'm afraid, has been a rather long-winded account of what goes on in morning prayer, but I felt I needed to say it as elaborately as that, simply because my desire here is that God will use the words of the prayer book, the words of the service, to lead all those who take part in the service into a full version of Christianity built out of the elements that make up the service. And that, I think, you will agree, is a long enough answer to your original question.
I was a young Northern Irish, non-liturgical Presbyterian with evangelistic zeal who headed to Durham University, and both needed time to think and face quite a number of challenges early on in my faith during those years. But I often went for morning prayer and evensong, and it created a space to help me restructure and reprioritize. And indeed, the patterns I learned from those are still how I pray to this day. Talk to us about how the morning prayer, or evensong for that matter, can be helpful to those of us from a free church background who haven't experienced it.
Well, Cranmer set all this going at a time when it was easier to pull together a good proportion of, say, a village or a small town in the church building early, certainly on a Sunday morning for worship, and in Cranmer's intention, that would have been done not simply once a week on the Lord's Day when it must be done, but every day of the week where it should be done, it could be done, it can be done, let me say, to great advantage. My hope is that it will be in the future, just as it has been in the past, only, if possible, more so.
Dr. Packer, you must often think about heaven. What do you think about heaven?
Well, when I want to go over a lyric on heaven, I take one that Richard Baxter, my Puritan friend, produced. Lord, it belongs not to my care whether I die or live. To love and serve thee is my share, and that your grace must give. If life be long, I will be glad that I may long obey. If short, well, why should I be sad? And now, what he wrote was, well, why should I be sad that shall have the same pay? That's not very poetical, but it's a great sentiment. In modern hymn books, I don't think that line occurs at all. I think that what occurs is a line that got added somewhere or somehow in the 17th century. If short, this is life, and why should I be sad to soar to endless day, which is sentimental and I think lets the stanza down. However, the hymn revs up as it goes along. Christ leads me through no darker rooms than he went through before. He that to God's kingdom comes must enter by this door. Then shall I cease my sad complaints and weary sinful days, and join with all the glorious saints who sing Jehovah's praise. My knowledge of that life is small, the eye of faith is dim, but it's enough that Christ knows all, and I shall be with him. I think that hymn is very telling. That's the world which my heart lives in.